Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly, as we hear from Jon and Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody. This is Rewind-A-Dynamite. I am John Pollock alongside Ting. Got to keep all these shows straight, Way. There's been quite a lot of them.
Oh, man. What is this, your fifth show in 24 hours?
Who knows? It's been a few. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, overall. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Okay. Good start. So we're both good.
Great. I'm doing well. Doing nice. Okay. I enjoy November. Noveber's an underrated month in the year. No one ever goes into the year saying, man, I can't wait till November. I like November. It's sort of just in before the craziness of December. It's not too cold.
I think it just kind of it's definitely a little underrated, maybe. It's just kind of sandwiched between Halloween and Christmas, isn't it? You know, it's not very exciting on its own.
Yeah, which kind of gives it its own character in its own unique way. So on that note, November the 15th it is, halfway through the month. So we are going to be going through Dynamite tonight. The first, will it be the only? Like a Dragon, Gaiden, the man who erased his name, street fight.
That this particular game, yeah, but I mean, would it be the last Like a Dragon, Gaiden street fight with blank, sort of subtitle? Maybe not.
We'll find out. We'll talk about the unique street fight that was on tonight's edition of Dynamite. All of this going into Full Gear this coming weekend, where we are going to have you covered for all nights of the week. Starting Thursday, we have got Wrestle Kingdom 10 to review. That will be up at postwrestlingcafe.com. All members will get access to this show. Way, I'm looking forward to reviewing this show with you.
Really? Okay. Why? What reason in particular?
Because this show is incredible. That's why. All right.
Okay.
That's my spoiler. Okay. New Japan had it going on in 2016. That's what I'm going to say. This is quite the show to watch. The breeziest long show to watch I can recall in some time.
Cool.
You did start this one, correct? You had mentioned.
I have started it.
I'm not even worried. If you have like more than half the show, I don't think you're gonna have to worry. It was a breeze, honestly, to watch this show.
It hasn't been for me. I'll be completely honest. And I think
whoa.
It's not because the wrestling's not good. When something's not really immediate, I just end up spending forever on it, and I just end up like not. Like I like the urgency of something live, you know what I mean? And going back to watch these shows, these are always like the toughest reviews for me, just because like, anyway, we'll talk about it on
all right. Well,
Thursday.
You'll get to compare this to ECW December to Dismember in 2 weeks' time. We can compare viewing because that's the one I'm dreading. But all of that coming up Friday night. Yes. 5 hours of WWE and AEW programming. So Way and I will be going live at 10 Eastern, but we're going to make Rewind to SmackDown free for everybody, while the cool kids in the Post Wrestling Cafe, they will be getting a late night edition of Collision Course, Friday Night Collision, with Kate from Montreal and John Cena going through Collision and Rampage. 3 hours, 2 shows, 2 titles from AEW.
Those are the workhorsemen, okay, of our little universe. Yeah, those two will be back, and they'll be reviewing all 3 hours.
Then Saturday, Way and I will be up as soon as Full Gear ends, and as well, Saturday night, we've got Rich Fan and WH Park reviewing the Marvels, and then it all leads into Sunday night, the return of the NWA podcast with Chris Ely, Andrew Thompson, and Nate Milton. So look out for all of that coming up this weekend. PostWrestlingCafe.com, $6 gets you into the door and all access to all bonus shows. And then if you want to jump up to the double level, that gives you access to our audio news updates, with one going up today, catching you up on the news. It's like cocaine. Okay. If you're a news connoisseur, you don't have a lot of time, but it's a nice hit in the middle of the day that gets you just wired for the next 12 hours.
Maybe that's what we should name the tier.
The Coke tier. Yes.
Yeah.
It's we'll run that by legal, see how they go with that. So check out postwrestling.com. All the latest stories coming today from Neil Flanagan, Andrew Thompson, and the whole crew. Let's talk about some news items. Tony Khan has a surprise for Saturday. He sent out a tweet that they have signed a mystery man, somebody that is universally respected as a professional wrestler.
Just to specify, we don't know if it's a man or a woman.
You're right. Yeah. Let's get the
Mystery
exact
person.
language here. One of the world's best wrestlers will sign for AEW at Full Gear, gender neutral, and they have to show up respected by virtually every AEW fan. So he's not just completely saying unanimous. Okay. Virtually every AEW fan. There's some that this person, it's not their style. They will come to LA to sign their contract this Saturday, November 18th on pay-per-view. And of course, see you tonight on hashtag AEW Dynamite before Full Gear. So this is one of Tony's tried and true promotional hooks for pay-per-view. And I guess you can throw out your speculation as to who is showing up. I will say this. I don't know if you could name me one person on the planet that AEW absolutely needs right now. There is not one person. Could it be Mercedes Moné? Of course it could be Mercedes Moné. Could it be,
John Cena?
I don't think it's going to be John Cena. That would be my guess. Okay.
Okay. But I'm just saying, if he was available, he would help the company. Yes.
I guess he would. Yes. If you could get John Cena. Although I don't know, the guy just had arm surgery and he's about to have another arm surgery.
It's not going to be John Cena.
I don't know if John Cena would.
You're saying of the people that are available, nobody is a big enough difference maker to AEW's business.
I think that this is, if you go back to when Sting debuted, okay, it was very high on this debut, and they got a bump in the numbers. And at that time, I said this multiple times, is that when you see this bump, it can become very intoxicating to just keep going back to this well, because it's always going to provide that immediate like dopamine hit if you're a promoter and your audience that craves surprises, and then you're just constantly going. And there's great names you can pick up. I don't think anyone would look at this roster and say, you know what they're missing? They're not missing anything. They have everything and then some on this roster. I would look at that when it comes to, and we should also do the timeline here. All the recent WWE cuts, that was September 21st, I believe. So unless there are some special no compete clauses, to our understanding, 90 days, which would likely limit all of those names that I'm sure people are going through. That would be till mid-December that they would be available.
Right. Tony likes to collect his toys. You know, he likes to see what's out on the free market. He likes to go to the flea market and see who he can pick up. And I mean, let's just assume that it might be somebody like a Mercedes Moné. I mean, this would have probably been in the works for a long time before. I would say maybe the sentiment of AEW having too many ex-WWE, or at least maybe older professional wrestlers coming into their system was part of like more of the sort of public discussion. And Mercedes Moné, I don't even think qualifies as, you know, she's certainly not older, you know.
She would be received very well, I think. Like, you're in LA, it would be, and honestly, it would be a big enhancement to an area of AEW's roster that I think is looking for more attention. And this would be the latest, I think, argument is that, well, Tony needs some major star that he is going to, you know, just rocket ship to the moon in their women's division. But I think Mercedes Moné would be, I mean, instant. I would not be worried about whoever this is showing up and not getting a great reaction. They'll get a great reaction, whoever it is. But I think Mercedes...
It depends who it is, okay? So now, expectations, coming off of, I think, enough discussion about Tony Khan and his announcing announcements, I have to think that he and the entire company are very sensitive about making sure that this one lives up to expectations. So it has to be somebody at least on the level of a Mercedes Moné. If it was anybody underneath that... I think if it was even, okay, let's say Dolph Ziggler was available. Even if it was a Dolph Ziggler, I think that would be a disappointment.
He'd still get a big pop.
He'd get a good reaction, but I think you'd also find people that would groan at
The one that is often cited was TNA that always loved to do this game of the surprise. And one of them was Chavo Guerrero Jr. And he comes out and this is after he's had his run, like he's, losing the hornswoggle in WWE. Dude, he came out, TNA thought they had signed Steve Austin. Okay. And I'm talking about the audience. They treated him like it was, oh my God, Chavo Guerrero Jr.
But a live reaction, I think, is different from maybe what an online reaction might be.
Okay. I'm talking about the live reaction.
Okay, sure. If Hornswoggle came out, would he get a good live reaction?
Virtually everyone.
Maybe it's Chavo.
You know what? He's
available.
He's promoting Iron Claw. He could be. Maybe he can come coordinate some street fights down the road.
Sure.
So that's the last minute push that they have for Full Gear is a surprise. What is not a surprise is that WWE and Panini, they're not going to trial way. They have reached a settlement. The trading card bonanza is over. There was a Zoom call. Nick Khan looked to be the point person for WWE that was able to reach an end to this. We don't have the details of the settlement, only that this filing was made that this action is dismissed without costs and without prejudice to restoring the action to the court's calendar, provided the application to restore the action. Okay, blah, 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 blah. It's without prejudice. So this will not be revisited. And I guess your question would be, are the sides just going their separate ways and there's no cost associated on either side? Because Panini, they wanted to at least see the end of this deal, as arduous or cantankerous of a relationship as this became, with WWE wanting to move all of this business over to Fanatics. I would read into this that this is probably, if they were going to continue, I think they would put out some kind of a statement. I guess we will see in the next 24 hours if there's any further mention by Panini about what their relationship is with WWE. But that
is it even an amount that you might be able to find out at the next TKO earnings call? Like, is it even significant enough in the grander scheme that you would even be able to deduce?
I mean, just speculating. I don't know what the amount would be, but I could certainly see that Panini is just given an amount to basically go away and let us just speed up and get to this Fanatics deal as we wanted it to be from the get-go. It's like you pretty much have a side here in WWE. They have moved on. They have met someone else, and they want a divorce from Panini. So what? We're gonna live together just because we've got a lease for another year. Like, how about we just move out and we call it a day?
It's trading cards. Like, what are they really going to lose that much stress over trading cards? I'm sorry, all the trading card fans that are out there.
The answer is yes. If you're Panini, I mean, this is a big loss for them. Rey Mysterio underwent knee surgery, so this was to explain his absence that will be coming up. House of Wrestling reporting that he had been working with a torn meniscus for several months, and then they did the angle on Friday. So I would imagine, the fact that we saw everything sped up with the Santos Escobar angle, I mean, not to say it came out of nowhere, but this was an angle we could have seen going for weeks and weeks, at least, before the turn. But I guess, once he dropped the title and he had earmarked, this would be the time, if you're going to be out, Nick Hausman estimating 6 to 8 weeks is the timetable. This is the time of the year you go for a surgery like that and you come back for the big season.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a little surprised they didn't do an angle involving the knee.
They did.
What was the angle? Sorry, did I forget?
His leg was placed in the steps, and then Santos drop kicked the kney.
Oh, I thought that was just a spot. I didn't know that was like an actual sort of like write-off type of thing.
Yeah, it was definitely the injury angle. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Then never mind.
So he can come back, and maybe this is a Rumble match. Maybe they have grander designs that they could push this all the way to Mania. Do you think that this one has the juice to go that long, Santos and Rey?
Sure. Yeah. Why not? You keep Rey out long enough, and sure.
AEW Collision ratings from Saturday night. So they were up against college football and the UFC 295 prelims, and the show did 396,000 viewers and a 0.11 in the demo. So they were up from the week prior when they were airing the same day as Crown Jewel. However, this is the first time that they didn't hit 400,000 viewers where they weren't airing the same day as a WWE show. So I don't know what you take from that. It's an improvement over the week prior, but the week prior was not a great number. They did see a 32% increase in 18 to 34. Female viewership also up quite a bit from last week in 18 to 49 and 18 to 34. This Friday is probably going to be the lowest Collision number in history. They're on a different night. They're going against SmackDown. And I can't say the lineup that they threw out tonight to entice you to tune in is going to be a difference maker. So this is probably going to be a learning tool for some, but I think if AEW has a Saturday night pay-per-view, they are committed to doing these 2 hours, and Friday night is going to be the night until SmackDown moves to another night, if they move to another night.
And the week after that, it's not going to be pretty either against Survivor Series.
That one's going to be rough too. Yeah, these are going to be two very, very tough numbers for Collision, would be my estimation. Raw Monday night against Monday Night Football. It was a more widely distributed game between the Broncos and Bills, with ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2 carrying the game. So you had over 17 million viewers combined watching the game. Raw was down 4%, doing 1,467,000 viewers, down 8% in the demo with a 0.88. Not too drastic of a decrease. A fine number for Raw. I wouldn't say like there's a whole lot to take from it. Although in Canada, biggest number in 3 months since August 21st, 297,400 viewers. So, I mean, I don't know what's in the water up in Canada that they have.
Do we just not watch as much football?
You know, last week they did a great number 2, and that was a show all built around Sami Zayn. I wouldn't say this was one that was all built around Sami Zayn. This it might just be Raw's this War Games. It is just taken this country by storm.
Sure. Okay.
And NXT Tuesday night, 703,000 viewers, 0.21 in the demo. This was coming off that incredible number last week, so this was a bit of a return to regular number status for them. 11% drop in viewership, 22% decrease in 18 to 49. After the big numbers last week, it was some pretty inflated drops here. They fell 20% in 18 to 34, 23% in 35 to 49. Canada doing 88,400 viewers. So fine numbers for NXT, even with the drops from last week. So that gets you all caught up. Are you aware of the Andre Chase scandal that's going on NXT? He's embroiled in some unspoken scandal that could tarnish his reputation.
I'm aware of it. What do you think it is?
I think they've got to do the Lori Loughlin like college admissions scandal, that he has a family member that he bribed to get into Chase U. I think that's what this
his own university.
Wouldn't he be allowed? I mean, if the nepotism didn't go through the proper testing of some sort. I mean, I don't know how far you go here with a scandal.
Right. You're saying how controversial they can go.
Well, you watch this. He could maybe he just shows up at NXT next week and comes out and says, "Then, now, forever," and just walks out afterwards.
Probably not going to go there. No.
Although the Chase U students seem to have more of a moral compass than some WWE fans when Vince McMahon showed up at Raw and SmackDown, because these Chase U students in the crowd, they got up and left. They walked out on Andre Chase, which begs the question why they even showed up at the Performance Center to begin with. It's like you came to the arena when you knew Andre Chase was defending his tag titles, but then during the match, you got up and maybe that was, we're going to get up in protest. We're going to show us getting up and leaving as a sign rather than boycotting the show.
We'll find out.
Big stuff going down in Chase U. All right. And on that note, the final thing is this Friday night. This could be the last Bellator card ever. They have Bellator 301 in Chicago, the Wintrust Arena, where Dynamite is next Wednesday. And this card is the final show on the Showtime deal. Showtime is dropping MMA and boxing at the end of the year. They have, I believe, one more boxing card later this month. But this will be the last Bellator broadcast. It's actually a very good card here. We have Yaroslav Amosov against Jeremy Jackson for the welterweight title. Patchy Mix against Sergio Pettis to unify their bantamweight championships. And then the lightweight World Grand Prix semifinals, Alexander Shabali against Patricky Pitbull Freite. Now, the interesting part here, the winner will advance to the finals. We don't know if these finals will even take place. So this is going to be the greatest post-fight interview ever, where they are asked about the finals and they will have no idea if these finals are even happening, much less where they are happening. But this will be, big questions about Bellator. Will it be purchased by PFL? If you are buying Bellator, what exactly are you buying when they have no broadcaster? Certainly they have some excellent fighters that you would want to sign, but to buy the entire company, I just don't know what the value of that would be. Like, tape libraries are nice. They are not worth a gigantic amount of money, nor do you have any way to monetize that if you're PFL. So
this could be the last Bellator show.
This very well could be the last Bellator card. If they are bought, if they're absorbed, even if they were bought and kept, they ran Bellator separately for a time, it'll be a very different Bellator. I mean, this is a company that has been around for 14 years and never have really been able to get to that next level. I think the closest they came was when Scott Coker came in and started to try, and his idea was a lot of freak show fights. Kimbo Slice, who was their biggest draw, Ken Shamrock, Hoist Gracie, Dada 5000, and then mixing it in with your Michael Chandlers and your Pitbulls. Like, they had a great core of fighters. It was just they were not superstars, and you were in a marketplace that was so dominated. This coincided, like, in 2012 when UFC went to Fox. That's when you saw the increase in fight cards to a near weekly basis, and your average consumer got everything they could possibly want on a weekly basis from the UFC, that you were not clamoring for more fights unless you were such a diehard fan that was going to watch more content on top of it. But the UFC just so cornered the MMA fans' needs that a Bellator, it was just so hard to break in. An AEW, they were able to tap into this big hole that was left from the WWE that was craving something different. And I don't know how many UFC fans watch and leave a typical Saturday night stating, man, this company could be so much better, or I just want to see something else. They've got such a monopoly of the best fighters. They are able to matchmake many of the best fighters together. And there's just only so much of an audience outside of that. And Bellator has learned that. PFL is learning that. One championship, you can go down the list. I don't know if we'll see somebody in this generation that will be able to really strike any sort of market share away from the UFC unless something absolutely catastrophic happened. And even with an antitrust suit, I don't see that being the case. But anyway, that's it'll be a trivia note on Friday, potentially on Showtime. Tonight, we are going to Ontario, California, the other Ontario, at the Toyota Arena for the Go Home Dynamite before Full Gear this coming Saturday. We'll go over the pay-per-view at the end. WrestleTix reporting 3,635 tickets distributed. So well down from the last time. This was about half full from the last time when this thing sold out almost immediately for their first time in Ontario, California. They recapped the attack on the Acclaimed and just highlighting Samoa Joe coming to MJF at the end of last week's show, keeping that above MJF's head, this choice he's got to make regarding Joe. And we're starting off with Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta against Orange Cassidy and Hook. And they start in the audience. They make it to the ring. This crowd very much into Jon Moxley early on here. Hook gets in with Moxley, and Taz explains that Hook isn't here to learn from Moxley. He's here to fight. And Cassidy is sent out to the floor. He's selling his arm for a while Hook is in there. He takes a heart attack. And then it's Moxley delivering the weak kicks onto Cassidy, who then slaps and mocks Cassidy. And we had a great series involving Hook and Yuta. Moxley hits a cutter out of nowhere to Hook. And then Orange Cassidy comes out of nowhere with the orange punch, which has no effect on Jon Moxley. And this shocks Cassidy. He is stunned. He is stun-dogged. And Moxley just stays on his feet, drills Cassidy, and then overcomes the red rum. Yuta breaks it up, and the Death Rider, followed by the seatbelt, pins Yuta pins Hook in 11 minutes and 29 seconds, which should set up Yuta at least going for this FTW title at some time, maybe thrown onto Saturday's card. A really enjoyable opener, and the story here is that Orange Cassidy was like spooked here that his orange punch, it's like his hand is back to 100%, but it had no impact on Moxley, who is got like a titanium skull.
I guess that time off, he was working
Built
on
up
the
his head.
skull
Yeah.
after the concussion. Yeah, really good match, I thought.
That might be the story. He got a concussion and he's like regenerated his
Yeah,
his head.
he's figured it out. He's figured out how to
That's
defend against head trauma. Yeah,
This is like some Terminator 2
that's it.
logic. This is something.
I thought the BCC were portrayed as very convincing favorites, as usual in these style of tag team matches, and I thought Orange and Hook played really great underdogs that you want to see sort of rise up to match the BCC's level of intensity and aggression. It was the type of match where they were kind of blown out here, like as usual when you're going up against a Jon Moxley, like they just destroy, and it's up to the baby faces to try to live up to them. But despite that, like the baby faces are still very you still want to cheer for them. It's like you're watching somebody like make it to the final level of a video game, and even if it takes them like 10 different tries, you're still cheering them on because they get closer and closer every time. And that's the effect of, I think, a BCC match, especially Jon Moxley, who really does, especially in a match like this, feel like a final boss type of type of competitor, where no selling for that orange punch, I thought was a wonderful little sort of moment they made out of nothing that will likely prompt maybe Orange Cassidy to have to add an extra element to his orange punches, in this street fight. It's not a video game street fight, is it? This one?
Isn't this just a straight up match?
I thought it was like some sort of a Texas death match, or am I thinking of a
Texas death match is Hangman and Swerve.
Oh, okay. So, well, he's gonna have to add some sort of wrinkle, I suppose, to
Power
this Orange
glove.
Cassidy. Yeah, to fit the video game theme. I thought Yuta and Hook looked really good together.
I thought these guys were great for the time that they had together, and I'm pretty sure we'll get a singles match out of this.
Yeah.
Moxley gets on the mic, tells Orange Cassidy he is nothing, and he's going to put the world back on its axis, and he's going to grind him into dust and leave him as champion. And he mentioned Axis, not putting the world onto Access TV.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yes. The Golden Jets arrive at the arena with Ibushi and White. This slow, like Reservoir Dogs walk towards the arena. And then Tony Schiavone brings out Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana and Hangman Page. And there's no physicality allowed between the two, or else they're both off the pay-per-view and suspended for the rest of the year. So they go face to face, and Tony reminds them of the rules, and Hangman just rips the mic away from Swerve, calls him a coward and a fraud, a worthless waste of human life. And you're dumber than 2 years ago when your dumbass got fired, and says you don't have it in you to be champion because you can't cut it. You're not the man you think you are. There's a reason your fiance left you and your kids don't speak to you. The crowd is just oohing at this line. Says that Prince Nana is just using Swerve. He comes out, does a funny dance, sells shirts, and then makes money off of Swerve to go outside and buy weed off of a high school kid. Well, Page is going to beat Swerve and then steal his weed. And this had Nana perplexed that his weed was going to be in jeopardy. And Page calls Swerve a child. And I know a lot about children. I taught kids many lessons, and I'm going to teach you a lesson on Saturday that you should have never come into my house. And we don't need lawyers or cops, because at Full Gear, I'm your judge, your jury, your executioner. And I'm going to make Swerve's house in the bottom of hell. And he slams the mic down, big exclamation point. But then he comes back. He's like, oh, yeah, another thing. There's no rule that says I can't touch Prince Nana. So he attacks Nana. Swerve can't do anything. A great spot. Security enters. Page attacks them, including a buckshot lariat. I thought this was the best segment on the show. I thought this was great.
Yeah.
In terms of tonight's show being a go-home show, what was the most effective thing for the pay-per-view? I thought this was it.
I think this might have been the best program built heading into the pay-per-view. The fact that like Swerve didn't get to respond, I didn't even have any issue with, because I think Swerve already made his statement when he broke into the man's baby's nursery. There's really nothing more he could have said that could have made something feel worse than what he did. This has now become, it was always a revenge story, and all it needs is just kind of that expression of fire and intensity from the guy who was wronged, looking for that revenge, and Page delivered it here. Excellent promo from him. He's very convincingly maintaining this sort of like unimaginable rage of a man whose family has been threatened. You know, this in wrestling's past has kind of been it's been kind of ridiculous anytime we've had a home invasion, and it's rare that like we actually have follow through following a home invasion that actually feels, I'm not going to say real, but at least like serious. And I think
This is your favorite home invasion angle.
I mean, I think Pillman and Austin are still going to be maybe more fondly remembered, but this is up there certainly. That should really be a top 10, top 10 wrestling home invasions. But it's
you would think of all the people on the roster, like the guy with the cowboy gimmick would be the guy that would like have guns in the house, and that if you broke into, you would be risking.
Well, he's it seems like he's a very modern cowboy, I suppose. He's more of a, maybe he does have guns. We don't know this. I mean, the baby can't use the gun, right? So it wouldn't have mattered. Anyway, I thought Paige's like reactions have been really good here. He's been the one that's able to kind of take this, what could have been a very cartoonish angle, and he's made it feel very serious. I love the logic in setting up the attack on Prince Nana and Swerve not being able to do anything about it. Very clever and something pretty unique considering we've seen so many of these sort of face-to-face contract signings in the past, and I don't recall anybody doing something like this. So really good segment overall.
Yes. Did you prefer this over if the two of them had met at an undisclosed location for a Warriors tea ceremony?
I did not catch it. So how was that?
I mean, they sat down and they had tea.
And they cut promos on each other?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, I won't say it was great. It was, I think they're certainly in the mindset of how can we do a contract signing without doing a contract signing?
Sure.
Like, what are different ideas we can do? Like rules of engagement, like anything that can get us away from contract signing.
Yeah.
Lexi Nair interviewed Roderick Strong in the Kingdom. So let me just rewind. So Roderick Strong does his first match back on Collision on Saturday against Darius Martin. He gets up from the wheelchair, takes off his neck brace, has the match, looks great, wins the match.
He's had matches, I think, before, since the neck injury.
Okay, well, it doesn't defeat my point. Like, are we supposed to believe he's injured? Like, what is?
He's not injured. He's faking it. He's for sympathy for Adam specifically.
But Adam can't see him wrestling.
So when you watch, I guess this Kingdom Roderick Strong character, I mean, a lot of it is just sort of it's comedy. It's I mean, Adam Cole saw Roderick Strong compete even before helping him move his furniture. So he's aware.
Why did he help him out so much? He was like basically kidnapped and kept in his house for days to put off his surgery.
It's part of the joke, the fact that he's clearly healthy but still pretends he's not.
Okay. Strong knows who the devil is, and he's gonna call Adam. So we get Adam on FaceTime and mentions his win over Darius at Collision. And he says MJF is the devil. Cole doesn't want to hear any of it and ends up hanging up on Strong after he suggests maybe Roderick's the devil. And Roderick promises on his life that it's MJF as Cole hangs up. So if it turns out to not be MJF, Strong has to give up his life.
I guess so.
That was the stipulation here. Yes.
I guess so. If he made a promise.
Skye Blue versus Red Velvet. The winner enters the TBS triple threat on Saturday. So this match I had a lot of things to say about this match. So Statlander is shown watching in the back. The first couple of minutes of this match, it's pretty slow. They're just trying to get things going. And then they start doing the multiple reverse covers. And by the end of this long sequence, the crowd is actually getting into this. And then they pop up to their feet and they go for a double head kick spot, which just looked terrible. And they both go down, and it was like you had the crowd, they were going up, and it was like, oh. So they go down, and then it's the Red Velvet show here. She misses this spinning roundhouse, avoids the code blue, but then is caught with the Skyfall by Skye Blue. And we get into some believable near falls here. And then there's a step up knee that Red Velvet catches, nails her with a power bomb. And then her big spot is a twisting Casadora off of the turnbuckle that I think everyone bought that Red Velvet was going to win this with. It looked great. And then after a super kick by Red Velvet following the kick out, there's a roundhouse that is caught by Skye Blue, lands the knee. And I was like thinking like, this has been a roller coaster of a match, but man, are they going to like end on this like high note? And then it's this rough looking Code Blue at 10:34, which I guess we've had a couple of instances now of Skye Blue having some difficulties with this finisher. And she wins it in 10:34 to advance to the 3-way. So I thought this match, like it certainly had some moments to it, but I thought there was also some sloppy stuff in this.
I think they're very ambitious with these sort of matches where they cram a lot of stuff in and they work. I would say for the most part, like to a pretty quick pace. And I feel like they nailed almost everything. Almost, John. And a particular note for me at least was, of course, the finish, and that was just almost a shame. But I thought that they did get this crowd, John. They got it. This is awesome chant. Even by the time after that failed Code Blue, these crowds were like almost like giving them like very polite applause as if like they were respecting the effort both of these two gave. So I was personally impressed by the both of them. I thought it was a good match.
Well, we go to Miro, who explains he loves CJ, but she's bringing in a storm. She wants gold and fame, and he used to let her do what she wanted, but she brings out the worst in herself and the worst in me. And his target is Daniel Garcia, because Daniel Garcia danced in front of CJ on Collision and said that you can dance, but you will be peacefully beheaded on Collision. Peacefully.
Yeah.
He's going over the guy. He's going after the guy that danced with her, but not the guy that she has signed in Andrade.
I think that's eventually going to come.
He's on the to-do list.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So Daniel Garcia and Miro on Friday. RJ City is with Mariah May and has orchestrated this meeting with Tony Storm. So when they open the door, that's when we go into Tony's black and white world. And man, it's like, it's not just the filter here. Like they also seem to like play with the audio too on top of it. Like
the audio filter.
It's like they're putting a lot of work into these segments. And Mariah May is just like losing her mind, and Tony Storm has no idea who this woman is, and obviously canceled Stardom World years ago when she left the company. But Mariah May explains that I went to Stardom just like you, and Tony Storm basically just blows her off and like, yeah, nice to meet you. And then Tony Storm summons Luther to contact head of the studio, Mr. Khan, to book her into a tune-up match on Friday night.
I thought this was great. Like, I think the gimmick has already been very good, but the extra production AEW has provided has definitely helped enhance it, and I think it's been well done. Everything they've done with Storm between this and the silent films in the picture-in-picture, I think it's a gimmick that almost like demands overproduction, but I think they managed to like toe that line really well, where everything has just really been well done, in my opinion. So this was we got the meeting. It was a decent second chapter, and I look forward to seeing more between these two.
Do you see this character having like legs to it? Like this can be can they go a long time with Tony Storm? Do you worry about this just becoming too much? Like the character just takes over in terms of like the presentation and such. Like it feels like it's fresh. Everyone is enjoying this character now. Can you preserve this for the long term?
Well, look what they've done with Orange Cassidy. That was something that was all gimmick, and I think they managed to develop that into a pretty fully fleshed out character. Certainly right now with Tony Storm there, to introduce the character, I think you need all these elements to make her just kind of stand out and to tell the audience who she is. And right now she's a heel, but there's a big baby face run that the audience I think is already waiting for from her. So I think they could go like quite a while, but it depends on how they continue to evolve it. They can't just rely on this forever. No.
Samoa Joe took on Jon Cruz, the unmasked Serpentico. And this guy is a total babyface. This crowd, and granted, they were in Southern California here, but I think that this guy is going to get similar reactions wherever he goes. They are going to do the update on the ROH title on Thursday's episode, but zero mention of it here. But I guess if you have nothing to announce it, not really worth bringing it up here.
On the list of announcements Tony has to give, that's like number
that's right.
15.
So he did the walk-off. The walk-off was actually really good because Cruz is like turning his head like he's like Superman flying next to the airplane as he watches Joe.
He's great. Jon Cruz, Serpentico, he's great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And lariat, coquina clutch in 90 seconds. Joe wins, cuts a promo, noting he's from Southern California, extends his offer of friendship to MJF, but the time is limited, and MJF will soon find out if he has his friendship or not. I am inevitable.
I think Joe is so much fun to watch in these sort of jobber squash match types of settings. I mean, he just has so much cocky charisma that just completely is perfectly suited for these types of matches. And you're right, sooner or later, I think he's going to be a big baby face, but not until he takes on MJF, of course.
They went over the announcement of the Continental Classic, an announcement on Saturday that was not promoted as an announcement ahead of time.
Yeah, look, very well received, I would say, overall.
Yes.
I thought they would at least tell us like who some of the other participants were, because it starts next week.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe the pre-sale for, well, I guess all tickets are on sale, including for World's End, so they can't promote any pre-sales.
No.
Penta, El Zero Miedo, and Komander versus the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks' parents are in the front row, and Shivani mentions that Tony Khan has a signing that he is going to announce at Full Gear. So they threw that out here during the match. After the opening minute, the four shake hands, but then the Bucks super kick them, and then Matt and Nick shake each other's hands. And then this thing just exploded for the next 12 minutes. I'll do my best to go through some of the greatest hits here. We have a double team wheelbarrow into a face buster on Komander. I thought this was one of Komander's best performances in AEW. I mean, him and Penta work so well together, and this was, to me, a big showcase for Komander. I mean, all four had their moments, but I thought he really stepped up and was easily on par with everyone here. Komander hops up the ropes for a Rana to Matt off the top. From there, tight ropes across the top, sending Nick off the apron with a Rana into Matt Jackson. He did this flawlessly. It was great. The transition from one to the other, which totally could have been just knocked off balance, like one bad step and it would have been a mess. Komander then comes off the shoulders of Penta and makes the salute in midair before landing a double DDT on the Bucks. Penta follows with Made in Japan that Taz questions that he was made in Mexico. And Matt makes the save on Nick. Crowd is going super wild for this. Komander sends Matt into Nick on the apron, avoiding the Meltzer driver, which Taz asks, "Did you say Seltzer driver?"
He did not. No.
Fear Factor is hit to Nick on the edge, and then Komander kicks off the back of Matt onto Penta's shoulders into a destroyer on Nick from the top. And then we see a springboard by Komander into a low blow by Nick, who follows with a low kick into Penta, and the Bucks manage to get their hometown crowd to boo them, and then hits the Judas effect onto Komander as a message to Chris Jericho. They go for the BTE trigger, hit Komander, and get the win in 11 minutes and 58 seconds.
This was a really, really excellent, Bucks, Lucha Brothers style of match, but with the sort of like fresh wrinkle of having Komander in place of Phoenix here. I certainly thought he stole the show for me. He had the most spectacular spots, that diving double DDT and that destroyer off of Penta's shoulders, just really amazing. And this was not just maybe a spot fest. It was a match that actually gave you a bit of substance for storytelling here, with Nick playing dirty and certainly leading heel here, in this upcoming match with the Golden Jets and doing the Judas effects. And still, though, maybe doing the thing where they think that they think of themselves as the baby faces as they walk up the ramp, still portraying themselves as like the hometown heroes, signing kids' shoes, and just basically ignoring that they've turned.
Maybe they'll come out in Celtics colors on Saturday.
Ooh, ouch.
Lexi Nair interviews the Bucks after the break and asks, "Why did you cheat in your hometown?" And they don't give a damn about what to not say or don't do. They're throwing out all the restrictions. And Omega comes in scolding them for doing that in front of your family. They're like, dude, you are such a hypocrite. How did you find all your success? And they tell Kenny, our heat is with Jericho, not you. So once you guys lose and the Golden Jets are broken up, we can do the elite thing again. And Jericho comes in, tells Omega, don't waste your time with these jackasses, and calls them kids. And then they shove Jericho and have to have a big pull apart just moments before this street fight that's coming up soon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Guns destroyed Peter Avalon and Jacoby Watts in 21 seconds with the 310 to Yuma. Watts is tossed out, and they get on the microphone stating, that was 2-on-2. What's going to happen when MJF is all alone against both of us on the 0 hour? They are taking the ROH tag titles. Wardlow feature, he's training. He saw fear in the devil's eyes, and MJF's time is running out, and he's going to make the devil his bitch. And then we cut to the devil mask at the end of this feature. So Wardlow is looming.
Mm-hmm.
Powerhouse Hobbs, Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, and Brian Cage against Jericho, Omega, Kota Ibushi, and Paul White. A Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, street fight. So we had Jericho and Paul White, who are not the Golden Jets. They were in their suits, which I guess was a tie-in for this game of some sort. But
Yeah.
Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi did not participate in this uniform.
Unless they have guys that look like them in the game.
You know who I was thinking about, who should have been the fourth man on this team instead of Paul White in a suit?
Loki.
Seems like we got a Like a Dragon Gaiden street fight.
Oh, he'd be perfect in this.
Oh my God, he was made for this. I mean, I couldn't help but think of Loki during this. So they all are out. Paul White made it to the ring. He walked out, and then
not really. He pretty
well-
much stayed up on the ramp and just let everybody come to him. You know,
did he not walk down to the ring?
he did not go to the ring.
That's right. He did stay up there. He did. You know what I'm mistaking it with? The walk was the slow motion walk towards the arena that we got earlier.
Yes,
That
the
was,
Reservoir
I knew
Dogs.
I saw him walk at some
Okay.
point, and it was like the frame rate was definitely slowed down.
He walked in
So-
slow motion. Yes.
Excalibur does mention that Jericho drew first blood beating Takeshita at Ultimate Party. So we did get a mention of the match.
Mhm.
This certainly did not play in terms of like the mutual respect and handshake at the end. And now they're murdering each other in the concession area and using every weapon on one another. So felt like
Yeah.
that part was not part of the story.
Because nobody knows about it.
No, I mean, like you do kind of look at it as like, I guess this was like,
I think it was more so done for the TDT audience. I mean, I can imagine Jericho coming in as sort of like the big superstar and Takeshita taking the big superstar to his limit, but leaving with the respect. Like I felt that was just more for the DDT audience rather than this AEW.
This was
audience.
like, it was a lot for Jericho to do all this in the span of like, what, 5 days?
Yeah.
So Callis is on commentary, and he just explains that Jericho won because he's been paying off refs in Japan for years, and Don Callis wasn't there to make sure everything was smooth. Some of the highlights, Paul White chokeslammed Kyle Fletcher off the stage. That was his big offensive maneuver of the match. Omega and Ibushi did the cross slash in the ring, which was
This was
timed.
really awkward. I mean, I wouldn't even put it all so much on Kota Ibushi, which I think maybe. Okay, so
He was definitely the slower of the two here, but this.
So
was,
even before the actual dive itself, there was some clear miscommunication of where people were supposed to be. And I'm assuming it was Brian Cage that wasn't in the right position because you had the most awkward, long, drawn out pause as Ibushi was just like, am I supposed to really do this now? There's nobody there to catch me, right? So everything
all
was
the
just
people
kinda
that might have just, okay, no one's there. I'm just going to do it anyway. He
To
might have been
nobody.
the guy to just do it.
to get in a match with the Invisible Man suddenly.
I hit him. We cut to Paul White and Hobbs, who are now outside the arena by a car. More to come later. Ibushi then comes down the ramp on a bicycle, an actual bicycle. They had all these props out there.
This was very much a tie into the video game where you could use
they had
a
a lot
bike.
of different
as a weapon.
signs and a bicycle. So he rides down with a pipe, and dude had the biggest grin on his face. He was having the time of his life, and then hit Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita with the lightest pipe shots you will ever see. I mean, this was basically him delivering a newspaper to these guys. Cage clotheslines him off the bike. That was the end of the smile. And then Hobbs, we go to the back. He has lifted up Paul White and he drops him onto the hood of this car and he rolls off. That was the end of Paul White. and I do not mean from this match. I mean, no, this is the end of Paul White, and it should be. This poor guy, listen, great. He has a role in this company. He does not need to be doing this stuff at this point. Like, this guy has had like hip replacements all for this spot. I'd be like, no way. This is just, he had no business being in this. I understand he's like the big monster. There was no need for this.
So I think the only reason why you would justify having Paul White in a match like this is so that you could have Powerhouse Hobbs do the Hogan Andre spot, right? Problem with this was that it was in the back, and I don't think it wasn't built up. It took place pretty early in the match itself. And it was in the back, so I don't think you had that immediate like big audience reaction to something like this. If they instead teased it throughout the match and then finally delivered it like a traditional like Hogan Andre spot, I think that in it itself would have been enough to leave a lasting memory. He didn't need to go through a car, he didn't have to like do all this shit. But I guess in a street fight they wanted him to be out relatively early. Ultimately, I do question like Paul White's inclusion in something like this, and I don't think it was really that effective by the end.
I think you could have gotten away with like just 3-on-3 with no Brian Cage, or just you find somebody else. It was like, dude, this is probably not going to be like the most remembered spot in this match, but I promise you, Paul White, just seeing him go around, I'm sure this is just going to be a killer to wake up after that. This was not like some just seamless fall that was all protected and stuff. I was like, this was a car. Like it sucked. And then rolled off of it to the concrete floor. Man. So that was the end of Paul White in the match. And I don't know where Hobbs went for like 15 minutes, but then he showed up back in the ring.
It was really strange. He was like being like, he was there barking at White, and being held back. And I mean, I guess why,
maybe he yelled at him for like another 10 minutes before he realized the match was still going on. Konosuke Takeshita uses the actual physical bicycle to attack Omega, Jericho, and Ibushi, including delivering a brainbuster to Ibushi onto the bicycle. Jericho and Konosuke Takeshita make their way to the concession area. This is what Paul White should have been wearing, those yellow neon pants.
Oh, maybe. Sure.
This looks like this looks like Young and Dundas.
Probably not, but
no, probably not. Then there's a suplex onto a plastic pallet by that Kenny takes. So Kenny gets a beer bottle and he smashes it over Kyle Fletcher's head. Fletcher's bleeding. They explain that Omega's hand is bleeding. I pray that this was not the case, that they used a beer bottle.
Oh, I can't imagine. I think it broke, didn't it? It
definitely
shatter?
broke, and it didn't have like the crazy explosion like the gimmicked ones do, but I couldn't see up close on his hand, but the announcers kept saying how he cut open his hand on the beer bottle, and Fletcher was like all busted open from this. But nonetheless, they continued. There were more broken bottles to come. Takeshita came off a drink machine in the concession area. We see a golden trigger to Brian Cage get stopped when Hobbs makes his miraculous return and hits the world's strongest slam onto Kenny Omega. Cage does a superplex to Omega from the apron through 2 tables on the floor. This was nuts. Spine busters delivered by Hobbs onto Ibushi go through another picture-in-picture. Kyle Fletcher takes Kota Ibushi, and we've got all these chairs set up on the floor with a sign over top, and he comes off the edge of the apron with a tombstone down onto these chairs. Judas Effect hits Hobbs, but he stays on his feet, so Omega and Jericho duct tape Hobbs and shut his mouth with the duct tape, attack him with weapons, including another bottle. Omega stops the drill claw. We see a bat shot from Jericho, Poison Rana, V-Trigger, and then the One-Winged Angel onto Brian Cage as Omega gets the pinfall, and they prevail. And Don Callis says that Brian Cage screwed the family tonight.
Always putting the out on the person who's actually not in the stable, which is
and
very funny.
The 3 survivors celebrated because Paul White was Paul White was done. We may never see Paul White wrestle again.
Oh man, yeah. I thought this match was a lot of fun. You know, much like the Anarchy in the Arena or Stadium Stampede, I thought they created the element of spectacle in this one. Had a lot of creative spots, a lot of risk taken, a lot of risk
I
that
would say
I
a lot of risk taken.
might
This
have
looked
not
like
even be.
a match that everyone was probably hurting from. Like, they did a lot of stuff in
It
this.
was definitely a concerning amount for some people. But that's sort of the expectation now, John, you know, for any of these types of matches. You need to deliver things that are memorable, certainly first and foremost, and to a certain level of risk. So they managed to do that. I thought it was engaging, entertaining, and memorable, which is about as much as you can ask of you know, promotional tie-in type of match.
How did Kota Ibushi look to you in this match?
At this point, my expectations are pretty tempered, you know, with modern day Kota Ibushi, and I thought he looked fine. And I mean, let's keep in mind the man's still doing moonsaults. You know, he's still doing things like that. He's not the sort of like best in the world type of performer that I think we all, you know, at one point thought of him as. But he's still good enough for this sort of role, I think. And by the way, Tony Khan announced that Kota Ibushi is officially all elite after this match.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I mean, Kota kind of like said that he had like signed a deal around like Blood and Guts, and you know that they made a lot of concessions to his schedule and wanting to live in Japan. Yeah, it's. I think Kota Ibushi. I think he left New Japan at the right time. But he's going to a company where it's not like quite frankly, if the door was open, this may have like if you're looking for one big final run in a major company, this might have been the time to go to a WWE if they had interest, where you can get away with a lot less. With AEW, like he is going to need to be in big matches, and I don't think you can always camouflage him in a setting like this. And like certainly, this is not the Kota Ibushi of 3 years ago. I mean, I think
But WWE, I don't know how they would have pushed him as a character. You know what I mean? The language barrier is always going to be a big thing, and you know they're just figuring out with Shinsuke Nakamura, and I don't know if they would have seen the same type of like storytelling.
it's a huge gamble, but I think it would have been a easier expectation level as well that he could get away with doing a lot of shortcuts.
But in AEW, he has like he's already a name that I would say more of the AEW audience probably knows, and he does have the attachments to Kenny Omega that you can use to tell stories. And at this point, I don't even expect him to be much more than a special attraction, like to occasionally attach to a Kenny Omega.
It's
like
what he should be
doing.
It's like he should not, and he won't be a regular weekly character. And it's probably best that you isolate a handful of matches a year that you can move him into. And that concluded it, like a wild street fight that certainly delivered on the violence quotient. And I'm sure the video game creators love this.
Yeah, this was. I mean, the last time they did this was for what is it? Halloween. The thing with Jarrett and Jeff Hardy. Remember that?
Oh,
it was
that's
all
right.
red.
Yes, this went over better than that.
This was much better than that. So you know, or was that Texas Chainsaw Massacre or whatever?
It was. Yeah,
I thought Brian Cage was really entertaining in this match too. Like he kind of is like he really
just had a
excels in
child this week.
What a way to celebrate!
Bunch of babies of like Corey Graves and Carmella, Carl Anderson, and Brian Cage. So congratulations to all of them.
All right.
Do you realize this week? So Jericho flies to Japan, has an incredible match with Takeshita, comes back, does this on Wednesday, and now has the Bucks match on Saturday. This guy's 53. Wow. Like that is
really amazing.
A lot in a 7-day period for him. Collision on Friday will feature Dax Harwood against Roosh, which should be very good. Miro against Daniel Garcia in a peaceful beheading match, and Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander against Saraya and Ruby Soho. Then Rampage, which starts at 10. Renee Paquette will do sit-down interviews with MJF and Jay White separately. Toni Storm in her tune-up match against Amy Sakura, and Tony Khan will announce more matches.
Right. That's not the big announcement. That you got to pay for that one on Saturday.
So that's your 3-hour block on Friday night. So I don't think they're throwing everything at this Friday night block. I think they realize this is not one to. Our focus is Saturday. Final segment, MJF comes out and does just a total babyface mission statement. He cannot outrun his past. I've opened myself up, but in doing so, I've gotten people hurt like Adam Cole and the Acclaimed. Apologizes to the Acclaimed who are caught in the crossfires of my life. He spent his whole life trying to become world champion, but being on top of this mountain, the air is thin and it's daunting with all of these people climbing up with the intention of pushing me off. And I'm man enough to admit that I'm afraid of losing everything and letting you people down. And the crowd chants, he's our scumbag. He says that the old version of himself would run away from this, but he's not going to let his history dictate his present or his future. He is afraid, but he's not willing to give up his spot. And you will need an army to get me off the top of this mountain. I thought this was all leading to Darby Allin, and they're going to have a Mount Everest battle for the AEW championship, the top of the mountain match. Forget the king of the mountain.
I mean, it's the biggest match is getting up there. I mean, but sure. Okay.
He doesn't think that Jay White can beat him and says that to the man who stole my devil mask, there's only one of these devil masks that exist. I will find out who you are, and there will be hell to pay. Jay White comes out, says that MJF has never been the hero. You've always been the villain. You're not fooling me. I know you're the devil. You're not the people's hero or scumbag. They will drop you in a second, and knows that the fans mean nothing to you. You've never changed. I'm speaking truth, and your days as champion are numbered. And he says, I've got 2 words for you. Get him. And sends the Bullet Club Gold to storm the ring. They beat down MJF, and then MJF is firing back, and then he takes a second to pose on the rope and then turns around into the left hand of God. He is hit with a 310 to Yuma, and MJF is left laying as Jay White runs in, hits the Blade Runner, and Juice counts 3. So your unofficial 24/7 champion, Jay White, holds up the title, and it ends with a shot of Samoa Joe watching in the back as Bullet Club Gold stand tall going into Saturday.
Right. So the mystery is still about who will be teaming up with MJF against the Guns.
Who will be MJF's partner? Who is the devil? And who is Tony Khan signed? It's a company of surprises.
The devil we're not going to find out on Saturday, but heading into Saturday, we at least have those 2 things, right? I thought as a go home segment, it was fairly standard, and I don't think there were really notable sort of lines or actions taken by either person to heighten or decrease my interest in the match much at all. I would even say it was a bit of a flat end to the show after the heights of the street fight, but you should end the go home show on the big, closing segment of the main event.
I thought it was a better promo than normal from Jay White. I thought he was very good in this role. It was sort of like if you're into this story, like this was just like your final words. I don't know if this was changing anyone's mind on buying the pay-per-view or not, but this was just your go home promos, and maybe you wanted more out of this, but I
did, because I thought Jay White's last promo talking about MJF was a lot more in depth and a lot more personal, attacking Jay White about his insecurity and always needing approval. This was just kind of more your standard, I'm going to beat you, and then here's my catchphrase, like, type of thing.
So that ended the show. And how did you think this measured up, especially as a go home show? Like, this was a show that you were trying to balance a lot of things. You were doing a really big match that was sort of the culmination of this Don Callis family program with Kenny Omega, while also pushing his program with the Bucks with Jericho.
I thought it was fine overall, to be honest. Like, my big attraction heading into the match, this show, was the street fight, which really didn't have anything to do with the pay-per-view. I mean, the Golden Jets are not facing anybody related to the Callis family. They're facing the Bucks. So I don't think it really heightened my interest for that particular match. As I mentioned, like, the Jay White MJF angle has been, I'd kind of graded at like maybe a 7, John, if we're talking about title match angles. I don't think they meaningfully made it feel like the biggest match on the show. Whereas I think Swerve versus Page, to me, has done a great job. And I think that's been the best built feud heading into this event.
If we're going with the relative range of 140,000 buys, let's just like in that ballpark this year that they've hit several times, are you going higher or lower for Full Gear?
140,000
buys.
40,000. And what did the last show do?
Wrestle Dream was below that.
I'm going to say below.
I think so too. I feel it's going to be a bit under.
Yeah, again, Jay White versus MJF to me is not the far from the best match that they could be promoting. Mox versus Cassidy is fine, but it's a match that I think we've all seen before, and it's firmly sort of like on the undercard. Shall we just go through the card right now?
Yes. I'll just add that unlike Wrestle Dream, like what this pay-per-view has going for it, it's on a Saturday as opposed to a Sunday, so they're not going against the NFL. There is still things on Saturday, but it is probably a better night for them. It's also been a longer period. Like we're talking like 6 weeks since the last AEW pay-per-view. So maybe you do have a more re-energized fan base that is ready to spend $50 on a pay-per-view. And it is a really good lineup on paper. Like even if like I would say the buys, you certainly like there is a clear main event on this show as it's been promoted. And that is, I think, what you will attribute the success or not of this show. But if you're looking at this whole card, like it looks like a very strong card on paper. So
let's go through it.
So main event, MJF and Jay White for the AEW championship. I think this is the one where I think it'll be interesting to see how well they can get Jay White across in terms of like, I see this match being like your 25, 30 minutes. And I think it'll be like a really hell of a match. But you also have Jay White. That's not everyone's cup of tea. I think he's excellent in these situations. And I think this is going to be a really strong match, but you are going to be fighting you're going to have to reel in your audience that is not believing we are seeing a title change here to really bite on those near falls. And I think they will get there. I think this is going to be a hell of a match. And I hope it is just not overwrought with Bullet Club Gold and all the other stuff that I think people are going to expect in this match.
Yeah, you'll certainly get that. But you'll also have MJF, fighting them off. And I don't even look at that as a negative. Like when used well, it's a great enhancement for, the babyface's comeback. So, I mean, it's an MJF pay-per-view match, which are almost always really excellent. Jay White also in these sort of long match, 30-minute situations is also really good. So I think the in-ring content will be great. I, again, don't really feel like my interest is where it should be for an AEW pay-per-view headlining match. I think the build has been certainly, you could say unfocused just between everything, the controversy, whether or not intentional, stemming from the whole Juice Robinson thing to the multiple directions with the devil, which I don't think has completely clicked just yet. And all of other, all of MJF's other sort of storylines at the moment. I don't think they've really hit hard enough the idea that because MJF is so unfocused, he could lose the championship. I think that was the strongest thing that they might have been able to use to build Jay White's chances. As it exists, it just really feels like a title defense to me.
Ricky Starks and Big Bill versus Rush and Dralistico, FTR, and Malachi Black and Brody King. 4-way match for the AEW tag titles. I could see this one going late in the card. I think that Ricky Starks and Big Bill, I don't see a strong enough reason to just get the belts back on FTR. I mean, you could put them on Rush and Dralistico, but personally, I'd like to see Rush get a bit of a singles run at this time. I think that now that he is back, I like keeping the belts on Starks and Big Bill. I just don't see an argument to just switch them here for the sake of it.
I don't even think the story is with Starks and Big Bill. I mean, the feud is between FTR and Kings of the House of Black. So they'll probably break off with each other without the need for the championship. Although, you know what?
Aren't the House of Black also feuding with the BCC? Wasn't that we're also doing that? Remember when they attacked all the BCC members?
Did they drop that?
They haven't dropped it. Claudio and Yuta have still gotten involved with them, but Danielson's out. Moxley's preoccupied.
Right.
So,
okay, well, I guess they're focused. Yeah, because FTR was teaming with for at least 1 week the Blackpool Combat Club. So
yes,
maybe they might pick that back up. But it's very possible they'll give it back they'll give it to House of Black. But I do feel like they have the titles on Ricky Starks and Big Bill for a reason, and that's probably to tell a bigger story with the two of them outside of FTR and House of Black. So I probably have those guys retain. But this too is like. I've not really been. I don't think it's been really well built up, but it's one of those matches where you just know, okay, the participants are really good. The match should be really good, but I don't think story wise it's been great.
Chris Statlander, Julia Hart, Skye Blue for the TBS championship.
Yeah, I mean, interest for this one is not that high either. Again, John. But I think in ring it could be good. I think you're talking about Skye Blue and Julia Hart, two very young competitors that have improved greatly over the time we've seen them over the past year. So this continues to be another really good showcase for them. Will they continue to tell the story between how corrupted, Skye Blue might exactly be? They've kind of settled that, haven't they? She's only 10% corrupted. She's corrupted. She still has the eye tattoos.
They've corrupted the code blue.
Yeah, tonight. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. How have you felt about the story?
I don't think the story's been all that great. I think this is one of those where it's okay. Here's a storyline for the women's division. I was like, it hasn't been that great of a storyline. I will say, I think the audience is into Julia Hart. Like, I think she has genuinely made improvements. I think people like the character. Skye Blue, I think Skye Blue, listen, I can only share like what I observe in these matches, but I do think she is a very good performer. I have seen her go into some very cold settings and win over crowds. But now you are switching her to a heel, which is, a deviation from that. They have a chance to, like, Chris Statlander is
she's a babyface.
Skye Blue? Sort of.
She spat blue mist.
She's 90% babyface.
Yeah. So again, I don't even think the story is really that important. It's more just the match.
And what have we been doing for 2 months?
Putting them on TV and letting people know who they are, So I think there's enough interest in
will this match air at 9:15 on the pay-per-view?
Is that the bad spot? 9:15.
I'm just saying, do they follow the TV format on a pay-per-view?
Probably a bit later, I suppose.
All right. The Golden Jets against the Young Bucks. If the Golden Jets win, they get the Young Bucks tag title shot. And if the Bucks win, the Golden Jets must disband as a team. So I see Jericho and Omega winning this one. And I guess you could argue if we're going that, we have to do some assumptions here of, Omega and Jericho going for the tag titles. Is that Ricky Starks and Big Bill, or do you see a title change there? But I see Jericho and Omega winning this one. And this one has to deliver in a big way. And this could be, that'd be quite the week for Chris Jericho if he comes out and has another killer match, because he's had two pretty great ones this week.
Yeah. I guess the question I ask is, beyond this match, what are the storylines for everybody? If Jericho and Omega lose, they can no longer team up. And is that going to create further fuel for dissent between Omega and the Bucks? And what's that feud? Like, what more can you do, I suppose, with Omega and the Bucks after something like this? And after everything they've already done together. Otherwise, we have the Golden Jets winning, and that would send the Bucks maybe further to their heel personas, perhaps.
Or do you just break up the Golden Jets at this point? Like,
that can happen too.
Like these two, like, I'm not worried about the match, but when you like these two, like, they do not feel like they are, like, it's an awkward fit to me of Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. These two feel like they are not
they're rivals. They're longtime rivals at this point. They're both from Winnipeg.
Exactly. Yeah. They're a weird fit together as a team.
Well, rivals pair up all the time. What do you mean?
It's a weird fit.
I think stylistically maybe is what you mean. Like, Jericho, even though I think we've seen him match well with Kenny Omega, maybe there's a certain standard for Kenny Omega that we're expecting, especially from like maybe the tag team partners he's had in the past. So, but I could still see them challenging Big Bill and Ricky Starks, for instance.
That's what I see. That is what I see happening here.
Yeah.
Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland, Texas Death Match. To some people, they may feel like this is the main event on the show.
The people's main event for sure.
I think it's been promoted the most effectively. They had their hiccups after the home invasion and the follow-up to it, but I think they've course corrected enough in the last 2 weeks.
I mean, it really was just the Chiron you seem to have issue with, right?
It wasn't just that. It was just, I think overall it was not played as like the intensity. Like, there has been a marked difference, I think, since that 1 week buffer where it just felt as though it was like, oh yeah, by the way, This happened last week. There was this home invasion that just seems to be like normal fare. And then the next week, it's like, yeah, no, my baby was in that crib. I'm going to murder you. So it was just,
I
to
don't
me,
remember the specifics of it, but
exactly, because there were none. They didn't make a big deal out of it coming out of it. Like it was just
I
nothing.
I mean, okay, so maybe if that was that 1 week, and if I recall correctly, it was because like Swerve was in the main event and Paige wasn't interacting with him. Anyway, I think they've done a great job, overall. Like by the time I'm at the pay-per-view itself, I'm really hyped for it. I thought tonight's promo was really strong. I thought last week's promo was really strong as well. So,
the only confusing part is that the winner of this, like, is another name. Like the winner of this should be going for the title.
Yeah, sure. Yep, and I could see that being Swerve Strickland. It's kind of shitty to make the guy who's home.
Like you've got Joe, you've got Wardlow, you've like it's just all these.
So I could see a rubber match between the two,
between Paige and Strickland.
Because somebody else.
Man, what do you do after a Texas death match? Like this?
Well, what do you do after a home invasion?
He's told him he's going to kill him, and then piss on his grave with his son every year.
Yeah. Well, maybe Paige has to win.
2 out of 3 falls. That's the last straw. I'm looking forward to this. I could make arguments for either one going over, but it's sort of what your mix is. But I would love to see the winner of this they should be in the title mix after this. But
who would you have then?
Part of me wants to see Swerve. I think like he to me is the guy that. But it's kind of hard to beat Hangman after he's defending the life of his son.
I know. Yeah, so it's kind of a tricky one to book where like you're right, like Swerve has all this like incredible upwards momentum that I think a lot of people are picking to be like of everybody on the roster who should be next to enter the title picture. I would say a lot of people would say it would be Swerve. But Paige is also working a storyline where his home and his baby's crib was invaded. So how do you make the guy lose? There are always ways around, booking things like this in pro wrestling. But I also don't think they're intending on Swerve timing wise to challenge for the title yet. So maybe it'll be Paige.
Orange Cassidy against Jon Moxley International Championship.
There's just been so much flip-flopping with this one, unintentionally, of course. But I don't necessarily see Mox just winning, especially with the way like he kind of beat down Cassidy tonight. I somehow see Cassidy retaining.
Does Orange Cassidy work over the head?
He's gonna have to fortify that orange punch somehow. Maybe he'll have to turn into a watermelon punch.
Okay, well, maybe some evolution.
A lot harder than orange.
Yeah,
the last match these two had was amazing. Of course,
it was. It was also the main event of that pay-per-view.
So we can expect the same. I think this will be a really, really great match. Could potentially steal the show.
Sting, Darby Allin, Adam Copeland with Ric Flair against Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne.
Maybe to some people, the other main event. This is Sting's possible last time in Inglewood, California. It's a pay-per-view Sting match, so you could expect a big spot. Okay. But like we saw on Saturday, I think you'll largely see Darby and Adam Copeland work, do the bulk of the action here.
Darby with his one shoulder.
Yep. And this will be Adam Copeland and Christian Cage sharing a ring.
That's right. And Adam Copeland's first pay-per-view match that he has as well. And you've got Ric Flair that's got to do some spot in this match. Maybe
do a chop.
I don't know. He fights a dinosaur.
That would be quite the scene. Yes.
They should actually do something where like Christian takes out Ric Flair or something.
Sure. Yeah.
Do something like that. Because you have to have, I think, several programs at least. I still think you have to, down the road, get to like a big blow off between Darby and Nick Wayne, obviously with Christian and Adam Copeland, which I just think the way that Adam Copeland has come in, I think there's been enough resistance to this that I would want to get that one shored up. I'm not saying race to get to that match, but I wouldn't put it off for months. I just don't think, I do think people want to see Adam Copeland in with a wider variety of stuff. I wouldn't call this like an overwhelming success these first 6 weeks.
It also hasn't really started yet. Like you could say this would be the start, the first time that these two are interacting in a match together in a 6-man, right? So I think there's a lot more to be done. We have a lot more material and story for them to tell. But I think in order to start it, who would you say needs to win a match like this?
I think in this setting, I mean, they have not had Sting lose, period. Have they in this whole time?
I mean, I'm sure they have, but I can't recall.
Someone can look that up. I don't see them I see Sting like pinning like Luchasaurus, or
Yeah.
probably Luchasaurus is there to take the fall in this one.
Or Nick Wayne.
But something that keeps everything going. And you could do something like a big spot with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, like some, spear off the stage, do something big that can keep those two aligned together.
Heels will
probably
lose.
A lot coming out of this one.
Heels could lose, and they can regain the heat by a post-match attack somehow afterwards. So yeah.
Hikaru Shida and Toni Storm for the women's championship. I'm interested in this. Like on paper, like this should be a very strong match with these two. I think the crowd's going to be hot for this. The question is like how Hikaru Shida works this match, because I think this is going to be like 100% pro Toni Storm crowd, and how they. I mean, you have to expect that going in. Like, I don't think they're going to be blindsided by that.
Totally. But Cheetah is one of the more likable baby faces they have on the roster. So if anybody can withstand that potential, I think it would be her. I don't think they'll turn on Hikaru Shida. Like, she's not really like, if this was Paige or sorry, a Saraya, then yeah, definitely. Not that she's a baby face even, but I'm trying to think of like another baby face that like might not be able to weather this sort of no pun intended storm, of positivity, right? So, but it'll be a huge homecoming for Toni Storm. I'm expecting a title change here.
Me too. Like, Toni Storm is your most pushed act in this women's division. Let's put the title on her. Like, it writes itself to do like the Hollywood celebration after she wins this. It's like, we're dedicating all this time. Let's make her the focal point of the division. Like, it just feels as though, like, how much focus has there been on Hikaru Shida as she's had this short title reign? Like, it's just,
there's not enough for them to do with her compared to Toni Storm, which they absolutely seem to love, putting in segments and showcasing, right? Shida, comparatively, they've yet to really fully define at least as much of a character for. So put it on Storm, yeah.
And the 0 Hour, we'll see what is added. We have 9 matches in total, but the 0 Hour is MJF and mystery opponent against the Guns. And I guess the question is, like, if you see if Samoa Joe be very weird for Samoa Joe to be put into this. And
why?
I mean, he made this big deal about giving up his TV title, and now he's going to come in and become the ROH tag champion.
Well, I think they could lose it. I think Joe can be the reason why they lose. Not to say Joe will get pinned. I think MJF is going to get pinned. And or they could lose however many other way, But Joe's whole thing was, if I team with you, then you have to give me a title shot. He didn't have to say they need to win in order for him to actually get the title shot.
Okay. I think this is just, it has no interest from me, basically.
I think it's one too many things. Like, again, MJF to me has felt very unfocused, and unlike the Adam Cole match they did before All In, I just don't see really that much interest. Like, this to me,
the ROH tag titles, they should be on the Guns. Put them on the Guns.
Like, this could have been a TV match, a TV main event. Like, for this show, I think it would have been fine.
Yeah, you could have done this the night before at the Forum. Like, it probably would have been a bigger deal to have MJF wrestling on your show the night before. But that's the show so far. Probably some more matches to come for the pay-per-view, but we will get you all caught up to date on Rewind to SmackDown. So we're live, free for everybody on the Post YouTube channel, 10 Eastern on Friday evening. And then Kate and John will be live at 11 on the Post Wrestling Cafe to get you through all of the AEW content coming your way.
And then Saturday evening, a full review live here at youtube.com/postwrestling of AEW Full Gear.
A Full Gear full review coming your way Saturday night with myself and Wei Ting. But let's go through some feedback and super chats before we call it a day.
Let's go to forum.postwrestling.com, and let's start here with Johnny from Saskatoon, who says, all right, tuned in for the last half of the show. I was on toddler's sleep duty tonight. Okay. He says the Bucks versus Penta and Komander was a great match. The first bit seemed a tad off, but once they started rolling, I was seeing a full glimpse into a PWG style match. Definitely the match of the show. The street fight, given what it was chaotic, but maybe not in a great way. Paul White's bump looked horrible to take at his age. I hope he's all right. even if he was kayfabe injured. Ibushi is slowly looking back to form. You could tell he was tapping into his inner DDT with this match. Next to Paul White, Ibushi might have taken the harshest bump on that bike. But for some context, Takeshita came out dressed as Majima from the Like a Dragon games. There you go.
All right. Next is Sal. I haven't watched Dynamite yet. Okay, welcome to the Dynamite review show. But just wanted to say, I really love John's interview with Chris Hero. Okay, I take it back, Sal. Thank you. John always does great interviews, and Chris is such an interesting guy. I'll be at the West Coast show on Friday and can't wait to see Chris Hero in person again. Well, that should be so. As I understand it, West Coast Pro, they will stream the show live on their YouTube channel, but they don't leave it up on YouTube. So you pretty much have to watch live on Friday night. So it is, I believe, 10 p.m. Eastern time that it starts on the West Coast Pro show. I was just told that today. So you do want, if you want to catch that match, it'll probably be going on sometime around like 12:30, I'm guessing, Eastern time.
Okay. Thank you for that information and great interview, John. You can find that in the free feed right now. Let's go to Shane McDonough from San Jose, who says, just pop it in to say that as a huge Ryuga Gotoku fan, I'm guessing that means like a dragon, that street fight was such a fun mess. The props, the entrance screen with NPC animations, the bicycle spot. Shout out to Kenny Omega for making that happen. At this moment, who do you guys think the devil is if you had to place a bet on it?
I think for story purposes, I think Adam Cole would be the best option of the available ones they have.
Yeah. I would say either like the top candidates are probably Adam Cole or Jack Perry from like a bit more of an out of nowhere perspective. Adam Cole almost seems a little too obvious, but I also don't have an issue with too obvious if it's sensical versus Jack Perry, which they would have to come up with quite the explanation for. So it's my pick between those two.
Andrew from Cape Breton. Advertising is funny. It's something most people don't enjoy but tolerate due to the support of their favorite products. It's essential in many places to get paid properly. It's seen as a necessary evil. Tonight, it was a brilliant part of the show. Sega must be ecstatic. From cosplaying as people in a video game to Brian Cage's love letter to Sega with his tights, the Like a Dragon street fight may be the best advertising in wrestling I've ever seen. I can see Tony Khan showing this to other potential advertisers in the future. If the talent is all in on a product, this is what you'll get. Sadly, I can't buy the game because I only own a Nintendo Switch and numerous older consoles. This match and the match of the Bucks against Komander and Penta seemed like a response to recent criticism of AEW that is becoming WWE light. You will never see that on WWE television. Great episode tonight.
Is that true? You'll never see a match like this on WWE TV?
You're going to see a pretty violent match at War Games. I would say probably not to the extent that you saw in this street fight. No, I don't think so much. The issue is the actual like in-ring content. I don't think is the criticism people have had. I don't know if you're always seeing these shows kind of booked in the way of like, let's just do 5 blow-away matches on a Dynamite. I think they are a little bit spaced out, but like these pay-per-views are, I don't think anyone is questioning like the pay-per-view and what you're going to get. I think that the criticism is more so it's like the non in-ring content on the show in itself. But to the point about, yes, I think this was a great advertisement of what AEW can do for like a video game release or something like that. I thought this is, if the advertisers were happy with this, I would not be surprised. I would think like this would be what you would be aiming to have, that you can do something unique like this in a pro wrestling setting.
Let's go up next to Corey from Long Island, who says, I don't watch Dynamite live these days. I just found that most of the time for me, weekly wrestling programming just isn't appointment viewing anymore. Today was a different story. A couple months back, I suffered a bad case of hip tendonitis and had to rehab it for about 3 months. In the time where one of my biggest hobbies, running, was taken away from me, I decided to go back to my trusty standby of video games in between rehabbing. Long story short, 4 months and over 200 hours of Yakuza games later, I find myself able to beat the final boss of the latest Yakuza / Like a Dragon game, The Man Who Erased His Name, only to get a text from my friend that the Like a Dragon, The Man Who Erased His Name street fight was about to begin. I promptly paused the game. This match was sick. Takeshita and Cage coming out dressed up like Majima from Like a Dragon and Axel from Streets of Rage. The Streets of Kamurocho on display on the Videotron. Acts of violence being performed with the bicycle. All of this was tailor-made for me to cackle loudly. There were so many stupid and gnarly bumps in this match, and I couldn't keep my eyes off of it for a second. Paul White and Kota Ibushi are really in their incredibly washed old guy wrestler era. And you know what? That's sick.
I understand the point he's making. I'm not going to put Paul White and Kota Ibushi in the same category together.
Yeah, I suppose maybe compared to their peaks of their careers, maybe there's something there. But he says, was this match a Matt classic? No. Would I tell most sane human beings to go out of their way to watch it? No. Was this match good? Maybe. Will it get me to go out of my way to buy this game? I just beat it and the credits were rolling as I typed this. But you know what? This match was sick, and that's what really matters. Eagerly awaiting the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth street fight.
All right. Well, brought a disenfranchised Corey back to AEW.
So I'm recognizing that the fans of the game already really, really, really like this match. So as a shout out to people who are already fans of the franchise, I mean, I feel confident enough to say that it was a success. Did it inspire people who don't normally play video games to buy a console? Maybe that's not even the intent. Did it inspire lapsed fans or people who own, I don't know, a PlayStation or an Xbox to talk about this game or to look into this game?
Maybe. I would totally play this game if I had the means to. 100%.
Swing bicycles at some people? Sure.
Drop large men on hoods of cars, whatever it was. Listen, you're right. You're talking about probably the most discerning audience, which would be fans of the game. And if it paid service to them, I think that would probably be your hardest audience to please. So that would be a pretty good sign right there. Jordan from the Bronx, also on baby duty during Dynamite, and perhaps my views on things might be altered due to my lack of sleep. I'm finding that the recent stretch of AEW shows have lost some of their luster. I'm still entertained, but nothing feels must-see. I can say that going into the pay-per-view, I'm interested in Swerve and Hangman and the development of the Devil Mask storyline, which he predicts will be Adam Cole. The street fight was a fun, chaotic mess, but I couldn't understand the point of Paul White's involvement in the feud if he was only going to be taken out in the back within the first third of the match. He didn't factor into the win in any way, and the bump seemed more dangerous than it was worth. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a spot for Powerhouse Hobbs to look like a monster. But I agree. Like I just thought that Paul White was like, man, did this man need to be put through this? Like he should just not be wrestling at this point. Like he has been through just the ringer with his body and the amount of surgeries he's had. And I mean, we could see that when he was unveiled as the partner. Like you could just see how limited his mobility was there. And this was probably the best they could do to masquerade that in the sense where we get a choke slam spot off the stage and then he's taken out in what would look to be a pretty...
Okay, so let me ask a question. And I don't want to sound insensitive when I'm talking about people's like livelihoods, but if you're Tony Khan, would you renew his contract?
I think that with a Paul White, if you like, we have to look at like a value of being able to do all of this local media. Like if you want to keep a guy, like that would be my role for a Paul White.
Is that his value?
I think it is. I think it is with working with a lot of these charities and doing a lot of community stuff that AEW is trying to do in different markets. Yes, I think he's excellent in that role. But that would be the role that I would be continuing him with. I would not, watching this, just seeing how the man is getting around, I would not feel comfortable putting him in a match, nor is there room on this show for him. Like there is, like, it's not as though it's like, oh, I wish we could just get, you know, a couple more matches out of Paul White because there's all this stuff that we could do. Like this, we have a stacked roster. We have a solid stacked roster, and we need to be getting younger, not older. There can be a role for a Paul White. It's not wrestling.
Sorry, everybody. We also had super chats here that I missed earlier on. So let's go first of all here to Jake Olinar, who sends $5 to say Saturday night will be busy. Full gear, then Vegas Vegas Grand Prix. Crazy enough at 1 a.m. where the track gives out full Mario Kart vibes along with the Sphere. Ooh.
Is anyone watching this thing live on the East Coast? I mean, what a...
if I wasn't doing the show, I would be. Yeah. I mean, those are my hours. But 1 a.m.
Your hours. How many people's hours are these at 1 a.m. for a 90-minute race?
I mean, F1 fans are used to staying up or at least like watching the races at pretty odd hours. So what would it be? 10 p.m. on the West Coast, 1 a.m. on the East Coast. So I guess people can watch Saturday Night Live and turn on the Vegas Grand Prix. But F1 is a very international sport. So I don't know. This might be 1 in the afternoon for people somewhere else. You know, so I don't think they're as concerned about like, you know, catering to the Eastern time zone.
All right.
Let's go up next to Brandon from New Jersey, who says, how do you think The Rock would have done against Amar Suloev in Pride FC, talking like Hogan now with the big white lies.
Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan's show and said in 1997 he was considering going to fight for Pride because he was only making 150 grand in the WWF.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I was holding my breath for Dwayne Johnson and Nobuhiko Takada in 97.
I guess I imagine maybe a Fedor. He could have had a match with Fedor. The Rock.
He would have had to go
Fedor.
to rings to fight Fedor then. Maybe
okay.
I don't know if he was aware of rings at that point. Yeah, I mean, he was under contract at WWF, so that wasn't going to happen. I can't get into the man's head. Was he really thinking about going to Pride in 1997?
I don't know.
Let's go on to Alfredo. The Like a Dragon street fight had some of my friends who are fans of the game interested in watching Dynamite this week, and they had a blast. I had no idea how the fight looked to non-Yakuza fans, but it brought us great joy to see Takeshita don an eye patch and snakeskin jacket while throwing bicycles at people. I hope Sega got their money's worth.
What video game would you like to see them promote next?
Mario Kart.
Maybe they could do it in Vegas.
GoldenEye.
Next time they're there.
How about that?
That might be a bit tricky, unless it's only chops.
The chops, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Mark, who says, so short list, but the question needs to be asked. Was tonight's sponsored street fight the best sponsored gimmick match we've seen across AEW and WWE? I'm leaning towards yes. Better than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre match, yes. Pitch, Black Mountain Dew match, and the Army of the Dead Lumberjack match. What am I missing?
Yeah, well, these all sound like the worst.
Has AEW
I mean,
not
AEW
done?
has done a few of these. Like, remember when that Space Jam movie came out? And it's like, it wasn't so much like, to me, it was not offensive when I was watching it. And I think that's what you look at this. Like, is this, are you hitting me over the head and I'm watching an ad and you just feel like I am the gullible fan that will just digest all of this marketing? I think you just want to make it as though we've put clear thought into this to give you some fan service while we're also satisfying an advertiser. And I think they hit a home run with this one tonight. I think overall, like I would say, yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was not the greatest hit, but it also was not the Army of the Dead Lumberjack match or searching for a golden egg all night long. So yeah. I think AEW has had a better integration of these overall, but this might be the high point. I don't know. I don't have these off the top of my head of sponsored matches.
I think there was a lot more heart and sort of knowledge of the source material put into a match like this than, a Mountain Dew pitch black match, which, I mean, how do you really promote Mountain Dew in the body of a match? But certainly the zombie movie was just, they just heard zombies and then they just gave you the most generic sort of interpretation of what I don't know, zombies would be in a professional wrestling setting. Again, probably a lot more challenging to promote than a match like this. But this was clearly made from people who at least had pretty good knowledge about the video game for certain spots like the bicycle and I guess the dressing up part. So and the hardcore fans are going to respect that a lot more.
Last one here is Cody from Maine. Hangman delivers fired up promos better than just about anyone else in wrestling today. Honestly, it might be the best. I get the home invasion was a bit goofy to some, but for me, the build to this rematch with Swerve has been great. Seems like a shoo-in for match of the night. Credit as well to Red Velvet and Skye Blue. While it wasn't a perfect match, they really worked hard for the 10 minutes they had. Hopefully those opportunities to sink or swim for the women's division continues after another year of disappointment from a large portion of the audience. Fun show tonight. I'm sure the pay-per-view will deliver as they typically do. And fingers crossed that the major signing is in fact a major signing. I hate to see someone like Chris Hero or Vikingo get roasted online because they're not Will Ospreay or Mercedes Moné.
Yeah, it's not going to be.
It's not going to be Will Ospreay. And it's, I don't think, going to be Vikingo either. Like, these are people that are under
Vikingo's already pretty much like, he's not any sort of surprise. The person who signed has to never not have appeared in an AEW wrestling ring before.
Yes. All right. Well, that is one aspect for the pay-per-view that will be revealed on Saturday night. So that's going to wrap it up. Thanks to everyone for tuning in live. If you want to check out the Chris Hero interview, it is up on the Post YouTube channel, and you can listen on your listening app of choice as well. So Rewind Away Thursday for all members, postwrestlingcafe.com. We are chatting Wrestle Kingdom 10 from January 4th, 2016, and we will discuss the latest saga of Okada, Tanahashi for the IWGP Championship and spot the young lions at ringside. Quite the game that we will be playing. So that is it for us. Thanks for tuning in to Rewind to Dynamite.